How do you solve a life or death dispute over a critical resource without, going to war? Well, today we're going to dive into an ancient story that is basically a masterclass in diplomacy, trust, and how you can turn a simple promise into a permanent legacy. Okay, let's get into it.
And that right there is the big question for our whole explainer. As we walk through this story, I want you to think about how these ancient leaders didn't just solve a problem for the here and now, they actually created a solution that was designed to last for generations.
So, our story kicks off not with some big battle, but with a meeting between two really powerful leaders right in the middle of a barren desert. And one of them is about to make a very unusual proposal.
So, on one side, you've got Abraham. He's a migrant leader, sure, but his success is just so off the charts that everyone sees it as a divine blessing. And on the other side, that's King Abimelech, the established ruler of the land. The power dynamic here is absolutely fascinating. It's not just about who has the bigger army, it's about who has favor from a higher power.
Now, what's so wild about this is that Abimelech, the king, he's the one who approaches Abraham, and he comes with this incredible admission. He sees how well Abraham is doing, his flocks, his influence, and instead of feeling threatened, he basically says, I see what's going on here. God's on your side. So he comes looking for peace, not a fight.
So the king's goal is pretty clear. He wants a formal peace treaty. He asks Abraham to swear an oath that he won't deal falsely with him or his kids or his grandkids. This is all about securing the future, right? A pact of mutual kindness, non-aggression for generations to come.
But just as they're about to shake on it, the whole thing hits a snag. Before any treaty can be signed, an old problem, a really serious injustice, has to be dealt with first. And this is where Abraham sees his opening. He agrees to the treaty, but he uses this moment of leverage to bring up a major issue. I mean, this is a brilliant strategic move, using the king's desire for peace to finally resolve an old conflict. And what was the conflict over? The single most valuable thing in the desert: water. A well that Abraham had dug himself had been violently taken over by the king's men. And you have to understand, in a place this dry, stealing a well isn't just theft, it's a direct threat to your survival. Abraham doesn't beat around the bush. He confronts Abimelech directly. Now, the king says he had no idea, but the accusation is just hanging there in the air. For this peace treaty to have any meaning at all, this has to be made right. The ball is officially in the king's court. So this tense moment, it leads to one of the most clever and symbolic solutions you'll ever hear about. This is where the deal gets sealed, not with a signature on a piece of paper, but with livestock. So check out how they build this agreement, step by step. First, gifts are exchanged. That builds goodwill. Then they make the formal pact. But then Abraham adds this totally unique final step. He separates out 7 female lambs, turning them into living, breathing proof of the deal. So when Abimelech asks, hey, what are these 7 lambs for? Abraham explains that they are his public proof, his living witnesses that he was the one who dug the well. I mean, in a world without written contracts and lawyers, this was a powerful, unforgettable way to seal a deal. And the number 7 itself, it signifies completeness, like a divine stamp of approval on the whole oath. And here's the really genius part, how they make sure this deal is never forgotten. They name the place Beersheba. The name itself is kind of like a pun. It can mean well of the 7 for the 7 lambs, and it can also mean well of the oath. The story is now literally written onto the map. How smart is that? But Abraham, he doesn't stop there. He gets that for a promise to become a true legacy, it needs more than just a name. It needs symbols of permanence, things that will outlive everybody who was there that day. So what does he do? He plants a tamarisk tree. Now, this isn't just any old tree. The tamarisk is an evergreen, and it's famous for living an incredibly long time and having super deep roots. It's the perfect living monument for a piece that's meant to be just as deep and just as long-lasting. So you see the layers he's building here? First, he's given the place a name. Then, he's planted a living symbol. And now, he adds the ultimate, final layer of meaning to the whole thing. He calls on the name of the eternal God. This one act transforms the whole thing. It goes from being a deal between 2 men to a sacred covenant, witnessed by the divine.
He makes sure this isn't just some political treaty, but a promise bound by faith, a promise that's meant to last for eternity.
And that brings us right back to our original question, doesn't it? From something as simple as a handshake to a wedding ring to the giant institutions we build, we still use symbols to make our promises last. This ancient story from Beersheba is a great reminder that the strongest agreements are the ones built not just on words, but on shared symbols of trust and a real vision for a lasting peace. So, what are yours?